Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to the second part of my three-part series about how to find and inspect a used car for purchase. In this video, we're going to be going over how to mechanically inspect the car before you buy it. I got two cars here. I got this 05 Honda Civic, and that one is also an 05. It's a Chevy Monte Carlo. This car is basically, it's pretty fresh from the auction where I got it. There's things wrong with it. So I figured this would be a good car to do mechanical inspection on, and also we're gonna go over and do the same things on this car. This car is in better shape. It's you know, we did a maintenance, we did a tune-up on it, and it's also a 4-cylinder versus this one, which is a 6-cylinder. So I thought, I don't know, that might be better to show both of them. Okay, so whenever you go see to inspect a used car for purchase, you want to inspect it when the engine is cold. You don't want them to have driven the car around before you go there. You know, you get there and the owner is in the car, letting this car idle or something. That's not a good sign. You know, engines and transmissions act differently when they're cold and they're warm. You know, sometimes, you know, I've had transmissions where they kick into gear the first time you put it in gear after a cold start, and that's a bad sign for a transmission. So you want to inspect them cold and try to, you know, be able to get an accurate reading as far as what the condition of the engine and the transmission is. But so yeah, you know, we're here. Let's say we're inspecting this car to purchase, and the first thing I look at, unless there's something else staring me right in the eye, is the engine oil. I'll check the condition of the engine oil first by opening up the oil cap, inspecting below it if, you know, if there is any kind of milkshakey residue on there, like yellow milky residue. That's a sign of a bad head gasket, potential bad head gasket. You know, it's a sign of coolant getting into your mixing with your oil. So yeah, you don't want that car. But sometimes on some engines, this is just generally where the moisture collects anyway. So you know, if you're starting at, you know, if the car's been running just after a cold start, you know, it's been idling for a couple of minutes, sometimes just the moisture that's in the air collects here. So, you know, if you see that, it's a sign of, you know, if you see a lot of it, that's definitely a bad sign, and you want to have it checked out by a professional. But, you know, if you see a little bit of it, then you still want to have it checked out by a professional. But on some engines, that's just moisture, and when you drive it for, you know, 5-10 miles, it goes away. But next, you want to check the oil dipstick, the oil that's on the dipstick. You know, you want to check the condition. You know, if you have a really bad head gasket, and the coolant mixing with oil, it will show on the dipstick. And as you can see, we actually have too much oil on this. The oil is a little old, not too bad, but someone's added too much. This is actually, this car, like I said, is from an auction, and I think they just top off all the fluids where I get them. But on this engine, I mean, this oil, this condition is fine. I mean, the way it looks is fine. There's no moisture in it. There's no sign of any coolant mixing with it. So our engine oil looks okay. Okay, same for our Honda. Here's our oil cap. Looks fine. Also, if there's a lot of sludge buildup underneath your oil cap, that's a sign that it hasn't been maintained properly, and you want to take that into consideration. Also, the oil on our oil dipstick looks a little old, but not too bad, and it's at the right, you know, right amount, so we're good there too. Okay, so next we're gonna check the transmission fluid. In order to check the transmission fluid level, most cars you gotta check it with the engine idling and the car properly warmed, but we're just gonna be checking the transmission fluid condition for right now. When the car is cold, the way the transmission fluid needs to look, it'll basically, transmission fluid, and when it's new, it's usually pink. But as it's in the car and the car, you know, it wears down, it starts going from pink to, you know, light to dark brown. As you guys might be able to tell, this is kind of a light brownish. You know, it is worn. It's probably original transmission fluid, but you know, if it was really dark, you know, then that could potentially mean that, you know, you have too much wear, you have too much clutch wear, and that's a bad sign. But this is just light brown. But furthermore, you want to smell the transmission fluid, you know, and you know, people say it's a bad sign if it smells burnt, but you know, the couple bad transmissions that I've had with the bad transmission fluid, it just smelled like really awful. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's burnt to some people, really nasty to others, but it will just, it will just hit you in the face if it's bad, if it smells bad. You know, you don't have to worry about being able to smell certain smell. You'll know it. Okay, so if it doesn't smell bad and it's pink to light brownish, then it's the condition of the transmission fluid. It's okay. You know, there could be other issues with the transmission, but the transmission fluid and potentially mechanical condition of the transmissions are okay. Okay, and here's how a new transmission fluid will look like. You know, see how pink it is. I don't know how good this camera is going to pick it up, but I got some on my finger, but it's really clear. But anyway, it's pretty pink, and this is what turns kind of brown over the mileage of the car. Okay, and to check the transmission fluid condition on the Civic, the transmission dipstick is back here on the passenger side. Okay, and the transmission fluid on this car, it's a lot lighter actually than the one on the Monte Carlo. This is they're both 05. This one has 108. The Monte Carlo has 79,000. But I think maybe this transmission fluid's been replaced at some point. But there's no, they're both pretty even so far. You know, it's not a really bad sign for the Monte Carlo. Okay, next what I like to do is open the radiator cap. Actually, I like to do this after I check the engine oil, but it doesn't really matter when you check it, as long as you check it. You have to obviously do this when the car is cold, when the engine is cold, otherwise you're gonna have really hot coolant spraying out of here at your face. And as you can see, we got some brown residue on this. This is not engine oil. You know, if this was milky, milky residue, it would be bad head gasket, but this is more like corrosion and rust that's on this radiator cap. This is as a result of someone adding water to the system. You know, either it probably has a leak somewhere and it leaks coolant. You know, it's probably not burning it because we're gonna inspect this further, but it's not burning it, but it's just really bad corrosion and residue. You definitely, if you were thinking of buying this car, and you see this is a bad sign. It hasn't been maintained properly. Yeah, so you want to keep that in mind. You want to see fresh coolant here. You don't want to see this. You want to see just fresh coolant, clean radiator cap. You might want to dip your finger in there and inspect it further, but it's actually low on coolant, so we probably have a coolant leak somewhere. And this is what happened. They had a coolant leak. They just kept adding water, just plain water to it, and it's probably been going off for a while, and it started developing this corrosion and this brown stuff. Okay, and here's a look at our Honda Civic. We got a very clean radiator cap, and we got very clean, fresh coolant. This is how it's supposed to look like. Sometimes, different cars, the coolant's supposed to be different colors. So, I don't know, like on Audis and Volkswagen, it's usually pink. So you want to keep that in mind, but as long as you have fresh looking clean coolant, you're good. Okay, next what I like to do is just basically check the condition of the brake fluid and the power steering fluid. This brake fluid is way overfilled. I think again this is by the by the auction. They just top off everything, top off all the fluids in the car. Looks a little dirty, but not the worst. This probably hasn't been flushed or replaced for quite some time, but brake fluid lasts a long time, but it just shows you that this car wasn't probably maintained properly. Okay, now the power steering fluid reservoir for this car is back down there behind those hoses, and I'm not going to be able to get to it that easily, so I'm not going to show it on this car, but I'll show it on the Civic. Okay, here's the power steering fluid reservoir, and you can get your finger in there. It's also pretty clean. It's not dirty at all. It's probably been replaced at some point. And our brake fluid, there's a reservoir. Yeah, it looks a little dirty, but it's still pretty clear, nothing to worry about, so we're good there too. Okay, so after we check all the fluids, now we're just gonna start just generally looking around, looking for any leaks or anything that stands out. Also, don't forget to check the battery, especially the battery terminals. Sometimes
this is where all the corrosion usually starts. Then if it has been going on for a while without being treated, you're gonna have some battery or charging issues. You might have to replace the battery. These terminals that go on the cables that connect to your battery, or the battery itself. Also on the battery, sometimes it says when it was the last time it was purchased or replaced. So I want to look for that on this car, on this battery. There's no sign of that, but this battery looks okay to me. It's no signs of no any warning signs that I can see. Okay. And next, we're just gonna look around the engine. Basically, some of the common areas where we get engine leaks is the valve covers. It's kind of hard to see the valve covers on this car, but you can just do what you can just to look around and see any signs. Like down there, there's some, I see some oily residue. It's probably leaking from this front side valve cover gasket. This is a V6. Basically it's shaped this way, and it's sitting in the car. It's front wheel drive, and yeah, see some oily residue. It's probably leaking from that valve cover gasket. And then you also want to take a look at the belt. This is the serpentine or the drive belt for this car. You want to look on the inside of it, check for any cracks and whatnot. You can also turn and look at it. This looks in pretty good shape. I don't think it's been, this definitely probably not the original one, but yeah, it looks in good shape. If it was really bad, you would see all sorts of small little cracks on these ribs, and that would mean it's time to replace it. Okay. I also see some oily residue on the back of this pulley down here. It's not a lot, but now that's your tensioner, and there's no oils involved with that. So what might be going on is some oil is getting on the back of this belt and rubbing against all these pulleys. So again, that might be from our valve cover gasket, or it might be from like our power steering pump or water pump. And so yeah, you want to keep that in mind. So on this side, I can't see a whole lot, but looking down there also, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to tell, but there's some oily residue down there too. I'm not sure if it's from this valve cover gasket that's probably leaking up here, or something else, but that's also something to consider. Oh, while we're on the subject of belts, the most important belt on your car, if so equipped, is your timing belt. Now, the timing belt is very important that it gets replaced. It's very important that you know when it was last replaced. You want to check the manufacturer's recommended replacement interval, and then go from there. And you really want to see some maintenance record as far as the timing belt is concerned, if it was due. Because if it wasn't replaced and your timing belt breaks, if it breaks, this is not your timing belt, for people that are not sure. This is a drive belt. This drives all your accessory belts. Your alternator, power steering pump, your air compressor, all your accessories that are belt driven. The timing belt is further inside of the engine. On this engine, this engine comes with a timing chain, so you don't have to worry about when that was replaced. But like on the Civic, it comes with a timing belt, and the timing belt for the Civic is behind this cover. Here's your drive belts on this Honda Civic. These are obviously all look new because I replaced them. I replaced both the timing belt and the drive belts, the water pump, and what timing belt tensioners and stuff on this car. I have a video series on this. If you're wondering, just look into my channel. But yeah, your timing belt, that's behind this timing belt cover, it's very important, because if it breaks, you're gonna need at least a cylinder head or a new engine. So yeah, make sure when it was replaced. If it hasn't been replaced for a while and it's due, you take the cost into consideration of replacing it, because it could be anywhere from $300-400 to $1,000 or more, or probably even more for some cars. Okay, and as far as inspecting this car for any oils, we got the valve cover for this car. It's very easy to see. Here's your valve cover. These are some of the most common areas of leaks. Valve covers, as you can see, it's pretty dry. I don't see any leaks. We got no grime, or besides the usual stuff. There's always going to be some grime around your oil dipstick, because that's where you take it out to check the oil, and then you get some oil on there. But You know, in the back of the valve cover gasket, you know, I don't see any dirt and grimes, you know, around the transmission. This car is pretty easy to inspect. You know, you got a lot of room up front, at least for leaks, inspect for leaks, you know, from the top. And a little grimy back there, but nothing that looks wet that would indicate any kind of oil and stuff. Probably just dirt and whatnot. Yeah, so far so good. This car is good. He's getting good grades. I can't see any leaks, nothing that stands out. So we're going to the next step.